Hello everyone, my name is Katie and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about bands that I originally didn't have a good first impression with. I've noticed a pattern with myself and my music taste. I tend to do this a lot with bands. A lot of times I'll hate a band when I first hear them, and for some reason later on they grow on me and become one of my favorites. But like I said, my name is Katie. I'm a metalhead who loves being a nerd on the internet, so if you're into that sort of thing, make sure you subscribe. And without further ado, let's talk about bands that I used to hate. The first band in question is one that a lot of people hate on. Some people say that they're not metal, some people think they're just a rock band, and that's a big conversation around this band. And for me, I just hated them the first time I heard them. It's gonna be Ghost. I first started hearing Ghost, I want to say around 2013. I feel like up to this point, they were kind of like a more underground cult band. You know, you really had to be into like the lesser known stuff to know much about them until 2013. They started being played on my local radio stations, and I started seeing like the imagery of Papa with his Pope hat and all of that stuff. And this was at a time I was about 16 years old maybe, and I'm Southern. I grew up in the South in the Bible Belt, and the thought of this like satanic priest scared me so much as a teenager.
She's not a Christian! She's tampering in dark-sided stuff!
I was very afraid of like dark, spooky themes at that point. It's so silly thinking back now, but I was literally scared of ghosts. That is embarrassing to say. I used to just hear them on the radio, and like I said, they would be in like Metal Hammer magazine, and I just thought they were kind of weird and never really gave their music a chance. And then I saw them in 2014 at a festival, and I didn't really pay attention to their music all that much. They were kind of playing and I knew they were there, and I wasn't really paying attention to the show. I was there for someone else, I don't remember, but I just didn't really care about Ghost at the time. I remember not being very impressed by their live music. They were kind of just weird. Back in 2014, they had a way different vibe than they have now. They played a lot more into that occult style thing. They came out with like this weird Latin intro, and it was like they were putting some satanic curse on the crowd, you know. It was very over dramatic. Around 2016, my local radio station played their song From the Pinnacle to the Pit constantly. I hated this song. I thought it was so bad. I was like, this singer is so nasally. I do remember really vibing with the bass line in that song though. It has a really cool bass line. And but other than that, that was one of those songs that it would come on the radio and I would change the station. I got so tired of hearing that song. So me just being a teenager and not really understanding the vibe, I never really gave them a chance. And then it wasn't until 2020 I heard their song Dance Macabre, and this song had a like really happy glam metal hair band sound to it. And one thing about me is I grew up a lot on hair rock and glam metal and all of that stuff. That was kind of like my gateway into rock and metal. So I really love that sound. It's like very nostalgic for me. And when I first heard this song on the radio, I didn't know that it was Ghost. I was like, this is like a really fun, happy band. It sounded like a song from the 80s, but it was also new at the same time. It was very strange, and I immediately typed in the lyrics on Google of the song I was listening to, and I found out it was Ghost. I was like, that weird band that I used to see all the time with the Pope, what's going on? So upon this, I loved the song so much, I was like, I guess I'm gonna have to listen to the album that this song is on. So I found the prequel album on Spotify, and I was blown away. First of all, Ghost had changed a lot since the last time I heard any of their stuff, but the album like impressed me way more than it should have. It was a little bit more poetic than I expected. I mean, they play into a very like satirical theme, and they're almost like a parody of a band sometimes, but they also have some really cool poetic stuff. And like I said, on the prequel album, I was noticing how like musically inclined they actually are. It's not just a joke band. I was really impressed by some of the classically written orchestral stuff, like when you hear some of the interlude songs that play between tracks, and the way they sort of did this world building thing with the lyrics. It was actually really well written and way better music than I was expecting from this band. And finding this prequel album basically snowballed into me digging into Ghost's entire discography. And I figured out really quickly that they've done so many different sounds throughout their catalog since 2010. And it's weird, the stuff that I used to think I didn't like when I was younger as a teenager, I liked more than some of their newer albums. Like that 2010 Opus Eponymous album incredible. It's like a bare bones classic metal. It reminds me of metal from the 60s and 70s and those really early days like Sabbath, Blue, Oyster Cult, like the early days of that harder rock. I found out that I loved those albums so much and everything else they did in between, and I realized like they had a lot more going on than I expected, and there's something for everyone in their catalog, all different styles of music all in one. And it's strange, like they became one of my favorite bands. Like now I would say they're in my top 5 all these years later. But it was at a time, it was in 2020 during COVID times, and I really needed something to just be passionate about and be really into. And I went through like a hardcore Ghost phase that I never really left, if I'm honest. But it's just funny looking back how much I used to just brush them off and not take them seriously and never listen to their music. And now they're literally in my top 5 of all time. Love Ghost so much. Okay, so the next band that I hated for years, not just the first time I heard them, I was literally passionate about not liking this band for years. It's Type O Negative. Alright, so I started hearing them around the time I was maybe like 13, 14. That local radio station I was talking about also played a lot of Type O Negative. It was like a Saturday night thing. I remember they would play a couple Type O Negative songs and then they would go into a Metallica hour. And I remember waiting around for the Metallica hour. I would always hear, I think it was Black Number 1 by Type O Negative. And for some reason, I never thought the music was that bad. I was annoyed by Peter Steele, okay? It was always this thing, like I had some friends that were goth and into Peter Steele, like hardcore. All they talked about was this goth daddy and how he's so hot, and like that was their whole gimmick, which now that I'm older I kind of think it's funny and appreciate it more. But me being an angsty little teenager, I was like, that's so what was the word? I used to be such a little contrarian. I would think everything is just so cringy and poser-ish, you know what I mean? Oh my god, I tried way too hard. These days I don't care about that stuff, but back then I was just so against cheering for this band. I thought it was just so embarrassing. You know, you got this hot guy with the long black hair and he's like this vampire goth thing vibe going on. All their songs are about love and it was like romantic, and for some reason I just could not get down with it.
I slowly started to be seduced by him, like he started to seduce me.
I always thought that they took themselves too seriously, and now that I'm older, like I said, I kind of understand more that they play into this gimmick of hot goth daddy, you know? I mean, Peter still did the Playgirl spread, and that's like a whole thing, you know? I understand why they did some of the things they did. It helped them grow a fan base, especially a female fan base, but looking back, I realize it's not that serious, and it's kind of funny. And I want to say around 2021 is when I finally actually gave them a full deep dive. I started seeing TikToks all the time of Peter Steele and their music, and I was like, you know, I need to just actually appreciate this band a little bit more. And when I did that, I realized, kind of the same as Ghost, I realized some of their music is a little bit deeper and more serious than I expected. Not all of it, of course, lots of satire in there just like Ghost. But I realized Peter Steele was like a very good lyricist, first of all. But let's just not talk about him. Well, we will talk about him as a bassist. Lots of cool bass lines in Type O's stuff. But also, one of the standouts to me in this band was Kenny Hickey. He plays the guitar and also does some back vocals. And I noticed he was like a very big presence in their music. And I think he had a lot of hand in writing their stuff. And then the drummer Josh is great. I noticed their music had a lot of layers. You know, you have like harpsichords and keyboards and synths and really fun stuff. And I just realized over time they have a very specific tone that no one else has really replicated. And another thing about it is it's almost like nostalgic to me now. You know, when they were around, I wasn't even really born yet. I feel like they started getting big the year I was born. So I wasn't really listening to them when they were like super big, but they remind me of like my early teen years. And I'm just thinking about how their sound is so tied to that time that now I can appreciate it a lot. And they're one of my most listened to bands now. The band that I spent so many years trying to avoid for some reason ended up being one of my favorites. And I finally just accepted my fate. Alright, I'm a Type O fangirl. I love Peter Steele. Well, that's a different topic for a different day. But anyways, I just love their vibe. I love the over-the-top goth stuff, and their music videos were really cool, and overall, just a very unique band. Okay, let's talk about the next band that I used to hate. And this one, it's not that I necessarily hated them, I just couldn't understand why so many people liked them for so long. So the band in question is Slipknot. And I can't believe I'm saying that now, because they've been one of my favorite bands for many years at this point. But back when I was younger and they were very popular, literally since I was a little kid, I'm talking like 8, 9 years old, I used to hear about Slipknot all the time. I would see their music videos on MTV2. Throughout the summer, they would play their music videos. I want to say it was like Before I Forget or Dead Memories or something from that era. I remember seeing their masks and their vibe, and I was afraid of them. It's just like the ghost thing. I was literally scared of them. And it's so funny looking back. I thought that was the heaviest that metal could get at that point. I did not understand that extreme metal was a thing, and I had never really heard people screaming before. And it's crazy to think back. Like, I used to think that was the peak of metal. This was probably before I ever really listened to any metal. At this point, I was just more of a rock music fan, like radio rock stuff. And the craziest I ever got was My Chemical Romance. All right, so let's not get crazy now. It wasn't until the summer of, I want to say 2010, that I was scrolling through Charter cable video on demand. Does anybody remember that stuff? They used to have music videos that you could watch on demand, and I used to scroll for any like rock band or metal band that I could find on there. And this was at a time that I was listening to a lot of hair bands. Like I said before, I was listening to like Motley Crue and Bon Jovi and Rat and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm surprised that I clicked on a Slipknot video, but I remember saying Slipknot, Psychosocial, and I was like, why not give it a chance? Haven't heard this band very much before. I know they're kind of creepy, but whatever. So I clicked on it, and I remember being absolutely hypnotized by this music video. It's got like a very, very unique, catchy guitar riff right off the bat, and then it has this groove to it. And it's almost like Corey Taylor is like rapping kinda to the groove of the song. I love the way he fits his phrases in with his lyrics. I was like, this is what Slipknot sounds like? I remember thinking they were a little scary, but it was at an age where I was finally able to be more like intrigued by it than scared of it. I was like probably 13, 14 years old. And I remember being like, oh, this is why so many of my friends like Slipknot. Like, I had friends that would collect the masks and all of that, and I just never really understood it. I was like, what am I not hearing with this band? I heard their stuff every now and then and just, it never clicked, but Psychosocial changed everything. And then after this, I listened to them like here and there over the years, but it wasn't until I would say the Gray Chapter album came out. That was when I really fully became like a diehard Slipknot fan. I remember that being my favorite album that whole year. And for years after this, Slipknot was my number one band. Like, if someone asked me who's your favorite band at this point, I would say Slipknot for many, many years. And of course, Corey Taylor became one of my favorite people in metal after this. And I always loved their stage presence. They have one of the best live shows ever. Like, even if you don't listen to metal, you would like a Slipknot live show. They're just so entertaining with the fire, and there's so many different band members doing so much. Amazing live show. You got to see them live before they retire, because who knows when they're going to pack it up. But I just love their vibe. I love everything about Slipknot. They're kind of weird and off-putting, but one thing that I always really appreciated was they have a lot of emotion and vulnerability in their lyrics. I noticed that Corey Taylor is one of the most vulnerable people in metal, and I always really appreciated that. It was funny, like, learning that this kind of music could actually have emotion and passion behind it. It's not just angry screaming. Well, it kind of is, but you guys know what I mean. It's very therapeutic, and I love that Corey Taylor puts his heart on the table in these songs, and they're actually like relatable songs that you feel like you can scream and let all your feelings out to. So like I said, I never really hated Slipknot. It was just something that everyone was into, and I just couldn't get it until one day it clicked and I just got it. Next band that I hated is probably the most dramatic transformation. Okay, I really, really didn't like this band the first time I heard them, and it's none other than Greta Van Fleet. So definitely a rock band, not metal whatsoever, but the first time I ever heard this band was in 2018 on Forza Horizon 4. Their song Safari Song was one of the tracks you could listen to in that game. And I remember saying right off the bat, can this game company not afford real music? Why are they using no copyright Led Zeppelin music? I said the classic Led Zeppelin Greta Van Fleet accusation. Okay, everyone at this point knows Greta Van Fleet is a Led Zeppelin copycat band and they're not original. And listen, in 2018, that was true. I can't believe I ever said that and was one of those people, but that was true at that time. I thought the vocals were annoying. I thought it was trying way too hard to be Led Zeppelin and never really gave this band another thought. Didn't even really remember their name or anything like that. And then fast forward to 2021, I was scrolling on TikTok a lot, as one does, and I noticed their clip of their Saturday Night Live performance was going viral.
See where we've been. Can't you hold my hand and stay a while?
And I didn't know who they were at this point, didn't correlate that they were the band from this video game. And everyone was kind of making fun of them in this clip. They were making fun of Josh, the vocalist, and his kind of like eccentric attitude, the way he was acting on stage. He seemed a little bit zooted, if I'm honest, in that clip. I don't know what was going on in that performance.
See where we've been. Can't you hold my hand and stay a while?
It became like a thing I saw for like 2 weeks straight, and then finally I went and actually looked up their music on YouTube. I was like, I have to see what this band is all about. Who is this guy? It's funny because I like had a little crush on him. I thought he was kind of cute, and he had like this little yodel in his voice. I was like, I need to check this guy out and see if like this is a real band or what. So luckily for Greta Van Fleet, I still didn't remember them from Forza Horizon 4, and the first song I clicked on from them is one of their best songs ever now in hindsight. It was Heat Above. And this was like right after their Battle at Garden's Gate album had come out, so it was like perfect timing for me to find their good, new, more original music. And guys, the first time I ever heard Heat Above, I felt like I was floating. That is one of my most memorable first listens of a song ever. I mean ever. First of all, Josh's vocals are heavenly on this song. There's so many layers in the song. Oh, it's so gorgeous. It feels like a spiritual experience. You gotta go listen to it if you've never heard it. Seriously, like a top tier song. Like, it's an all-timer for me now. But that was the first song I ever heard from them. So of course that interested me more, and I wanted to listen to more of their stuff. And I dug into a little bit of their stuff. Like a few songs in, I heard the intro to Safari song, and I was like, wait a minute. This is the Led Zeppelin copy band. These are the guys that made this incredible song I just listened to. That was them in 2018. I was blown away, okay? Because the transformation was incredible. I'm so proud of them because they were a lot younger whenever they were kind of like doing this Led Zeppelin copycat thing. I don't think they necessarily did it on purpose. I think they were very inspired by this style of music and of course Led Zeppelin. I think they learned quickly. They kind of had to rise to success really quickly. I think they learned that they had to be more original, and they made an EP called From the Fires that was a lot more original. But that album, Battle at Garden's Gate, was really what made them stand out, and they finally have their own sound. And granted, there's like a couple songs and a couple riffs on there that are still Led Zeppelin-esque, but they definitely found their footing here, and I was very impressed that they matured so much in such a short amount of time. It was only like a 3-year span in between their Safari song. So I fell in love with this band. They were all I listened to for so long. I'm talking like, you ever find a new band or new album and it's just always on no matter what you're doing, like in the shower, in the headphones, when you're chilling before bed, whenever I'm getting ready, it's just constantly on in the background. Literally, it was all I did was listen to this band and all of their live performances and everything. And it's funny because this was at a time that I wasn't really that into music anymore. I had always been a really big fan of music, especially rock and metal, but up until this point for like a few years, I just wasn't into it anymore. I wasn't finding a lot of new stuff. I had that brief moment with Ghost that was really nice, but for just a few years, I didn't really find much that sparked much in me anymore. And finding Greta Van Fleet literally reignited the flame for my passion of music. And it made me want to play the guitar, which is a really funny butterfly effect to talk about. Pretty much watching Jake Kiska made me want to start playing. So I got a guitar that looks like his, and I started learning how to play the guitar, and I'm almost at my 3-year mark of learning now. I've learned so much, and it's interesting. I don't really play rock music like that, like Greta Van Fleet style, very much on my guitar. I mostly play metal. It's funny to think about this rock band is what inspired me to start playing, and now I'm like in a whole different realm. But listening to them, like I said, sparked my love for music again, and it snowballed into me listening to old favorite bands in other genres like metal, and just like slowly I got all of my passions back, and now I listen to way more metal subgenres than I did before. And it's just funny to think about how a band that's like barely related to what I listen to for the most part helped create this passion all over again. Anyways, this just goes to show that first impressions aren't everything, and it also goes to show that music can change your life. This actually pulled me out of a very depressive state, and I love music all over again, and it's the reason I'm here. You know, it made me start posting TikToks, first as me tracking my guitar progress, that turned into me just talking about music on TikTok, and then I started a YouTube channel, because why wouldn't I? And Greta Van Fleet's the reason that I'm here talking to you right now. Next band, Ice Nine Kills.
Do you like Ice Nine Kills? Not really.
If you've watched me a little bit, you might know that in the more recent years, I've been not that into metalcore anymore. It's something that I really liked when I was younger, like a teenager. Something about it didn't spark much interest in me anymore for a very long time. I just kind of like brushed off a lot of metalcore bands, and just, it wasn't my scene anymore. I guess I'll put it that way. So Ice Nine Kills is one of those bands that wasn't really on my radar. I had heard about them before, and I feel like I maybe had seen one of their music videos. I think it was the Resident Evil song. I can't remember the name of the song, but I had seen that and knew who they were, and I kind of just thought it was like run-of-the-mill metalcore. It was fine and everything, but nothing was super stand out to me. It wasn't until I think February of 2022 I went to a Metallica show in Las Vegas. By the way, that's a great place for any concert, but definitely a Metallica show, because you get out of the concert and you have like this after party at all the casinos where everyone is wearing a Metallica shirt, and it just felt like Metallica family. That was so cool. But anyways, Ice Nine Kills was one of the opening bands for Metallica that night, and I remember seeing that they were on the ticket, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool, I guess. Like, it's not a bad band. It's a band that I'm kind of familiar with. This is gonna be fine. But I really wasn't appreciating them all that much. Like, I went into the merch line during their show, and I wasn't really paying much attention until I noticed that they were putting on a stage performance. Like, they were bringing out characters from horror films. I realized that they're like horror geeks, and all their songs are about horror. And I'm a huge fan of horror. If you know me and have seen my channel, I've talked about it a lot here. That sucked me in. I realized that like the frontman was wearing a Freddy Krueger glove, and then the next song he had the book from the Evil Dead, and then Samara from The Ring would come out on stage, and different things like that. It was so much fun. And I realized they had really cool music too. Like, their guitar work was really fun to hear live. I never really realized how much melody they had in their stuff. And instead of me thinking they were just like I used to say they were like a Motionless in White copycat, alright? And then I realized, you know, they're pretty cool. They got their own thing. They got this horror gimmick, and it actually works. It's really entertaining. And it's funny, after this show is when I really did a deep dive and listened to more of their stuff, and I slowly became a very big fan. Like, a very big fan. As a horror nerd, they're just the perfect band for me. I feel like they're actually a little bit better than some of the other modern metalcore bands in terms of music. They follow this like kind of common metalcore song structure. It's kind of got like a pop structure to it, but with heavier elements to make it more metal. But it's very catchy, it's very fun. I love the sort of lore they have within their music videos, and they have songs about all of my favorite movies. The most recent one was Terrifier. I love that they did that. I'm such a diehard Terrifier fan, so I don't know, I'm like, how could I not love this band? Now that I understand what they're all about, I very much love them. I never thought they were terrible, but it's just, I was like, why would I care about this band? Now I get it. Alrighty, so the last band I'm going to talk about today, man, this is another time of me just being a contrarian and not wanting to listen to something that's popular. It's Sleep Token. Okay, I'm sorry, but around 2022, they were getting really popular on TikTok. You know, I was seeing a lot of thirst traps of Vessel from Sleep Token, the frontman. And I was just kind of, it was kind of like the Peter Steele typo negative thing. I was like, okay, we get it. The music is kind of sexy, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was just trying too hard to be like, I'm not like the other girls, you know? I try so hard to fight that, but it is within me. I feel like a werewolf. It's coming out of me all the time. I'm trying so hard to keep her in there. It's okay to be like the other girls. Sometimes the other girls have good taste, okay? But anyways, I was trying so hard to not like Sleep Token. It's so stupid. And then one day, on this YouTube channel, someone told me that I need to react to their song. I think it was The Summoning. I listened to one of their songs for a video reaction here. And if you've seen that reaction, you totally know what I'm gonna say. Like, it was kind of a life-changing experience. Just because it was like nothing I'd ever heard before. I felt like I was floating. It felt spiritual. It was sexy, but it was like a very experimental song, very unique. I swear it's like nothing I've ever heard. The song sort of like changes up throughout. Like, it has a totally different vibe from the beginning to like the last half of the song. It's just very different. Never heard anything like it. It's kind of got metal, like there's distorted guitars and there's like some metal tone to it, but it has a little bit of like an R&B groove to it and maybe a little bit pop. I can't even describe what their sound is, but that's a good thing. When you can't describe a band's sound, good for them. That means they're doing something different and original. So I just appreciate and respect that about them so much. And I listened to their other stuff, their album, I think it's called Take Me Back to Eden. That whole album is glorious. Like I said, feels spiritual. It's very gorgeous stuff. It's one of those ones that it's a no skip for me. I can sit there and listen to the whole thing. It's very ethereal. Yeah, once I realized I needed to actually give them a chance and just like give in and be like the other girls, I totally understood where the other girls were coming from. It is actually incredible. And I regretted, like, I never really like outwardly stated that I hate them, but I thought it, you know. I used to be like, oh, they're just not my taste. But inside I was like, God, I'm so tired of hearing about this band. And man, that's always the case with me, isn't it? If I hear about a band a lot, it just takes forever for me to finally listen to them. But I'm glad I did, and they're teasing some new stuff right now. They have this super cryptic website where you gotta decipher a code. I still don't know what the code means. I hope someone in the comments can tell me. But I'm excited for their new stuff to come out. This is like a kind of newer favorite of mine. And God, I'm looking forward to it a lot. I hope they wow us again. Okay, so thank you guys for listening to me yap for so long about all of these bands. I just love talking about this because I want people to know that, like, your favorite stuff can come out of nowhere. Something you think you're never gonna like might surprise you and it might become one of your favorite things. And like I said, some of these bands in here actually changed my life in a really weird way and led me down paths that I never thought I would go down. And, you know, try not to be too much of a contrarian. If there's something you think you're not into, just give it a chance. And if you haven't listened to it in a long time, give it another chance and maybe now you will like it, and maybe you won't, and there's nothing wrong with that. But anyways, let me know in the comments down below what bands you didn't like on first impression that you later did. I'm very curious if other people do this with their music. But anyways, I'm gonna wrap up this video right here, so thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!